All right, here we go. Welcome in to the Hoosier Homes Podcast. Make sure that you share this episode with anybody that you might think needs to listen to it. Could be your mom, could be your cousin, could be your friend, could be Uncle Joe that you haven't talked to in 10 years. But if they're looking to invest in real estate, if they're looking to grow their knowledge in business, real estate, anything of the sorts, or maybe they just want to hear a funny story, we got some of those too. But we are kicking this off. This is the first one in a long time, or maybe at all, that I've been flying solo for. We're not doing an interview. Going to start sharing some stuff that I've learned over the years. So here we go. Sit back and relax. We're going to run the music and get right into it. Here we go. Cool. So this week we are going to be talking about at what point does your side hustle become your main hustle, or at what point does your side hustle become your job? I guess a little bit of background for those who haven't listened in a long time. If you go way back to the beginning, me and my wife did an episode back when it was called Keen Talks. Now it's the Hoosier Homes Podcast. But we did an episode kind of recapturing our story, where we started in real estate. I'll give you a quick recapture there just to catch everybody up. But I was working in California. We lived in California in Santa Clarita, just north of LA. I was working at, I had a couple different jobs, but when the real estate started, I was working at Northrop Grumman, which has, some defense contracts for the government. They build different things like that. I was in the aerospace division doing physical security. So I was over the site, the guard force, the people who were keeping it locked down, the access control, video surveillance, stuff like that. And basically working a corporate job, just kind of trying to figure out how to make some money on the side, and had kind of been interested in real estate before that. My mom did a flip right when I was leaving for college in Indianapolis, so I saw some of that. My uncle was a general contractor for a long time. As I've said before on this podcast, my family is very entrepreneurial. My aunt and uncle ran a kennel that they grew and sold that business. My grandpa had a shoe store. My uncle was a general contractor. My dad has his own financial advising practice. So just a lot of different businesses in our family. So it kind of runs in the blood to, tread your own path. I don't know if that's a phrase, but to kind of just make your own path and to build your own way. So that was something that definitely interested me. And when we were in California looking for other ways to make money, kind of landed on real estate. My brother-in-law had talked to me about appreciation and flips and the ways to make money and how to do that. Got into bigger pockets. I had a long commute from where we lived to my job every day. So I would drive at minimum like 45 minutes a day. So basically I could knock out 2 Bigger Pockets podcasts per day, one on the way there and one on the way back. Every once in a while, you have to catch the end of one because it ran over. But just started listening to a lot of people who do real estate, a lot of people who have done it. They do other business stuff also, but real estate really grabbed my attention and what it could be. I know we can make it work if we wanted to. So we started looking into how we could purchase properties. We had wanted to move. So long story short, we quit our jobs in California. Before we quit, we got a mortgage on a house in Tennessee that was going to be our primary residence. So we bought a house sight unseen in Tennessee based off of our income from our current jobs, which we then quit and had no income. So that was fun. We had a little bit of money saved up. Quit our jobs, went full-time into real estate, which I would not advise at this point because making money in real estate is hard enough, let alone if you have no income and you've got a wife and, you want to live. But we did that. We moved there. That house required a lot of work. I gutted the upstairs down to the studs, new insulation, floors, trims, drywall, everything, windows. Gutted the master bathroom downstairs, and it just sat gutted the whole time we lived there. Actually, we used the other bathroom because we didn't have the money to afford doing that. But speed it up a little bit. While we were in Tennessee, we ended up buying another house in Indiana, in Greenwood, Indiana. We bought it on a land contract. So for those of you who don't know, you don't always have to go and get a traditional mortgage in order to get a house. What we had proposed, since we weren't we didn't feel like we should, and we're in the place to go get another mortgage, we basically proposed creative finance. So what we did was a contract against the property for $100,000. We gave him $10,000 up front for the down payment, 10%, and then we took over his payments. His monthly payments were $700 and something odd dollars. So we took over the payments, and while we were paying on that house, we were flipping it. So I was driving from Tennessee with my wife up to Greenwood to work on the property. We bought an air mattress. We were just sleeping in the unit while we were working on it, which also another mistake we probably shouldn't have made, because I think it slowed us down a little bit because we weren't sleeping really well and we were working where we were sleeping, and it was fun. Come to find out later, about a month into that project, my wife was pregnant with our firstborn. So that also threw in a little bit of a wrench into the situation. But anyways, we bought that property on a land contract. So we whenever it went through a lawyer, did everything the right ways. That got signed off. That got filed with the state or with the recorder's office for the county, I guess is a better way to put it. So we were working on that property, working on our house in Tennessee. And at that point, that technically was our main hustle. Back to our original point as I get lost in the story. But that was our main hustle. We were doing real estate. Kind of fast forward a little bit. We knew we were pregnant in Tennessee, ended up moving back to Indiana and buying a primary residence here in Indiana. And when we had finished that flip, we sold it. We made about $30,000, I think. Maybe a little bit under after I think it was 27 or something. We took all that money and bought another rental. The down payment for that was $50,000, and my business partner ended up putting up more money to buy that rental, which in the short term was not the best decision. We should have taken that $30,000 and invested it into another flip, and then another flip, and then another flip. But it was an off-market deal. It was in a great location. That property, 3 years later, we sold it and made about $115,000 off of it. If you take away the down payment that we recovered, that's about $75,000, I think, right? $75,000 that we made. I paid that mortgage 2 times. We had it rented the whole time. We might have stuck about $10,000 in for fixes right before we sold it. So altogether, we made $50,000 to $60,000. So we doubled our money in 3 years, which is definitely not a bad investment at all. I think that worked out pretty well for us. And it just wasn't the short term. It wasn't probably the wisest thing to do with the money. But at that point, after we sold the Greenwood house, the flip that we were working on, and we bought the rental, I decided to get a job just for security. We were pregnant with our firstborn, and real estate at that point wasn't really making us money. So I got a job. While I was at that job, I decided to get my realtor's license. And this is where it kind of turns from a main hustle. We got a full-time job. I had kind of put all real estate on hold. We still had the property in Tennessee that was renting. We had the rental in Westfield, Indiana that was rented. So we were self-managing those 2 properties, and they were doing well. We just weren't pursuing more deals, basically. But while I was at my job there, I ended up getting my realtor's license. It took me, 3 weeks to do the course online, took the test, passed, got my license, and that was in January or February of 2021. Our son was born in October of 21, right? Yes. No, January of 22 is when I got my license. So it was just after our son was born. So at this point, it's been 3 years. But that then turned into my side hustle. So I was trying to generate realtor leads while at work. I was still trying to find flips. I was still trying to find rentals. And what I was doing is I would open up Instagram and I would message every person that I saw attached to the hashtag, like realtor, hashtag real estate investing, all those different things. I would just go on there and message people. Sent out a lot of messages. I just copied and pasted it and put person's name in there to make it more personal. Actually, from that, I met one of my good friends, Logan, who we've had on the podcast before. He's an amazing realtor. He's helped us get more and more business for the property management. So from that, we've actually had a good relationship come from that. I've met a couple other people from that time, but that was my side hustle. And in being a realtor, I ended up selling a property for an investor who has had 3 units at the time. We sold one of them, and then they asked me if I could manage the other two, because they had just fired their realtor. He was their property manager. Things had gone south. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can manage your property. I'll charge 8% to do it, which at the time, all I was doing was self-managing ours, so I didn't think that 10% really was the way to go, and they wanted to pay a little bit less, so 8% was what we landed on. And it was, I don't know, couple $100 that we were making off of it. And I was like, yeah, I think I can do this a couple more times. I think I can get more rentals and just manage them for people. It's really not that much work, come to find out it's an incredible amount of work. So that's where I had a full-time job, was trying to get clients as a realtor, started the property management company. And then, fast forward a little bit more, my older brother, Ben, was looking to get out of his job. So we ended up working together, starting the official Hoosier Homes Management LLC together as business partners. And in January of 23 was when that went live. So it's been a little over 2 years now. And we've grown that from when we went live with that, we literally had 2 properties that we manage plus mine. So 4 properties that we manage. And then like 2 months later, we signed, I think we jumped up to like 11 or somewhere like 11 to 15 or something like that. And then now we manage about 180 2 years later. So we've grown pretty quickly. It's been quite the wild ride, but for the point of the podcast, from when did our side hustle become our main hustle and when did it become a full-time job? I think a lot of people get into real estate because they want passive income. They want something that's going to pay out for them really big, and they don't have to put that much effort into, which, is potentially possible. I would say if you're going to buy a rental property and have a property manager manage it for you, you could achieve somewhat passive income. There will always be decisions to be made. There will always be maintenance. There will always be, do we sell it now? Do we get another tenant? You need to check in on your property manager. If you own a rental property and you never hear, well, first off, if you never hear from your property manager at all, you need to fire them on your own. Like if you're not getting monthly statements, if you're not getting email contact on probably at least a monthly basis, just saying, hey, this is what your property did. This was the maintenance. We send out statements every month that breaks down your profit and loss, your income, your expenses, your maintenance, your utilities, if you had anything between tenants, all those sort of things. We send out quarterly statements, just updating you on what happened that quarter. It's a lot of the same numbers as the monthly, but it's good just to see it in a bigger picture of, hey, this is what happened this quarter. We're probably going to have to service the roof in a couple months. It's getting real old, or, the water heaters, we've had to relight it a couple of times. It might be going out. Let's put that on your horizon, things like that. So if you're not hearing from your property manager, you 100% should fire them. That being said, property management is difficult, but if you want to achieve passive income, I think the easiest way to do it would be a rental property that you have a property management for. And even then, you're still going to spend time on it. So people have this idea that you're going to achieve passive income, you're going to retire off of the cash flow, and that's great. But if you want to have 10 grand a month, you need to be making, your rent roll needs to be 20 grand a month. I mean, you need to be double that, because you're going to have people who don't pay, you're going to have vacancies, you're going to have maintenance, you're going to have this, that, and the other. So if, I guess your rent roll also, your rent roll doesn't necessarily have to be double, but if you're wanting to make like bottom line, bottom dollar, make, 10 grand a month, you need to have the potential for your bottom dollar to be 20, just for all those other expenses, to be rolling in. So you need, your numbers have to be, you need to be hitting your numbers, and you need to be very aware of those if you want to achieve passive income. But for us, when our side hustle, we had the dream of starting our own business, time freedom, being able to spend time with the kids, all these things. And we do have those dreams, and we do achieve those from time to time, we achieve those things. But all I did was build another job. I quit my job when I had some business and we were managing properties. I quit my job in December of 23 or 22, excuse me. And I just started cold calling, trying to find realtor clients. And the Lord was very kind. In 23, we had a really good year. We closed a big portfolio. A lot of friends and family bought with me as a realtor. So the Lord definitely took care of us and provided clients and provided management clients. 24 was hard. we were managing 120 or something like that in the start of 24. And it was kind of trial by fire and figuring all that out. Business is hard. Business is very hard. You have one person leave and it leaves a void. You've got to do as a business owner, it all comes back to you. Everything is you. Everything is, if it's got to get done and there's no one else to do it, you've got to do the showings. You got to make the calls. You got to have the hard conversations. You got to send the reports. You got to send the money. There's no shortage of a to-do list. My to-do list very rarely goes under, 50 things to do in any given day. And as I get one done, 5 more get thrown on there amidst calls and everything. And I love it. It's great. The hustle is super fun. But I have just absolutely beat around the bush as far as side hustle to main hustle. But my point is, your side hustle at some point is probably going to become more profitable. If you're a salary employee and you're making, $70,000 a year, once your side hustle is making you the same and or more, and you've had it's not a flashy making 70, so like say you make 70 at your salary every year and you're a realtor and you do 7 transactions in 2 months and you make, or 10 transactions in 2 months, you make $7,000 a pop and you make $70,000. That's cool and all, but is that sustainable? So I would say you need to have a proven income stream that's going to surpass your current W-2 to call that your new main hustle. It doesn't have to be the exact dollar amount. You could make more, you could make a little bit less. Maybe you're making 70 at your job, but you really only live off of 50. So you're bankrolling some money every month. And if you want to be able to keep that same lifestyle, you need to be making that much. But maybe you're like, hey, I'm making 50. That's what we need to live. I think if I really put my weight behind this, we can make more. The one thing I will say too, as an employer now, having employees and having been on the employee side, you need to give your all where you're at. Side hustles are great, but if it distracts you from your job and it distracts you from doing the absolute best work that you can do for your current employer who is giving up money for you, who is paying you a paycheck, something's wrong. You either need to have an honest conversation with them and say, hey, I'm trying to build this, or, don't do it during work hours. Just make sure it's not distracting you from your actual job. Time theft and just brain power. I've experienced it from starting our own things, that the amount of space in my brain that's taken up from the problems from the business or the side hustles, it's a lot. So if you have a full-time job and you're trying to be really good at that, then it's hard to start a business. It is a hard thing to do. Even right now, I have my mainstays, which is like realtor and property management work, and we're trying to put more weight behind the podcast, and it just takes away so much thought process and time, and it interjects during my day, and it's difficult. So long story short, you just need to be very cognizant of where you're going with it if you want this to become your main thing. A lot of people start a business and then 5 years down the road, they're like, I don't even like the business that I'm working in. Dave Ramsey has a new book that I need to read, actually. I think it just got released not too long ago. It's Build a Business You Love. And it's that exact premise that people build businesses that they don't want to work in. I set out to have a time freedom, and I set out to be able to spend more time with my kids. Not that I want to stay home every day and just hang out at home, but I want to have breakfast with them. Wake up and just be able to drink coffee with my wife and be able to be home at a reasonable time. And, a lot of times that doesn't happen now that we have our own business. It doesn't work like that. My most productive time is between the hours of like 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. before everybody else is working, before tenants start calling, before my meetings start. And so like just the mornings I need to get up and get stuff done. But time blocking has been huge as far as just putting it on the calendar. Like Wednesday mornings, I do stay home with the kids for breakfast. They know that I'm staying home. My wife knows that I'm staying home. So I get to make breakfast every Wednesday for the kids and hang out and read the Bible and really spend time with them in that way. But it's hard, starting your own business and making it into your main hustle is you have to be prepared to work harder than anybody else in your company is going to work. I've never worked harder at a job than I do now at my own job. And that's not to say that I didn't work hard at other jobs. I thought I thought at the time that I was working hard, but now, looking back, it's like, man, I had so much more to give. And it's just because you have ownership of this. I have ownership of this work. This is my business that I have to push forward or else it's not going to work. In Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership, the concept of even for your employees, that same concept can apply where maybe they're not doing so well because they just need more responsibility. They might be, quote unquote, slacking off because they need more to do. They need to feel like you believe in them. They need to feel like you trust them as your employer to give them the responsibilities, and you're not going to, micromanage them. You're not going to babysit them. You're going to allow them to do their job. It's a very interesting concept where it might seem backwards to a lot of people where if they're not doing great, it's like, hey, give them more work. And it may not work out. Maybe that's not the reason why, but I've seen it firsthand where that can be the case. But my main hustle, my side hustle became my main hustle by default, I guess, because I quit my job and I was like, hey, I'm going for it full time. I was not making more money at my side hustle at real estate consistently than I was at my job. But I also knew that I would never, for me, it felt like I would never be able to surpass that if I continued the course I was going. So it's a hard question to answer. When does your side hustle become your main hustle? You need to have the income there and you need to have your spouse on board. If you're single, get somebody who's going to help push you and hold you accountable. Maybe it's another business owner, maybe it's a good friend, maybe it's your parents, I don't know. But having someone who's like, hey, this is going to be hard. When you have problems, you can talk to me about it. I will say, without having my wife, like there's been times where it's like, hey, today was a great day. Even this week, we had like a very big high and a low, commissions coming through, signing properties, vacancies getting filled. And then, someone's not going to be working here anymore. And it's going to take me from having more time freedom all the way back down and just like absolutely slammed. Because when somebody leaves right now, I've only got, 3 employees. When somebody leaves, that's a third of our business, a third of my workforce is gone. And that's a very big void. So there's such big sways. There's such big turns in my schedule and my time and my time commitments. You have to have someone that you can talk to about those things. You have to have someone where you can say, hey, this is what happened today. It was great. And then this happened and it was terrible. It sucked. But your main hustle, you have to be okay with that not being some kind of passive nonsense. Like the whole passive structure of not going to the office, not working hard, being able to just go to the beach every day because my VRBOs pay me $100,000 a month. That's all Instagram highlights. I mean, it's possible, I guess. It's potential, but you also have to remember everybody's different. Everybody's numbers are different. Everybody's needs are different. I've got a mortgage. I've got 2 car payments. Hopefully we're going to pay both of those off here pretty quickly. But my financial need every month, I have 3 kids, 3 and under. I have a wife. We've got a dog. We've got all these bills. I've got rent for the office that I have to pay for. I've got employees. Versus someone who's just, this is their, side hustle that they do full time. They've got 5 VRBOs and, one in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, one in Hawaii because they were stationed there and they bought a house. Now it's an Airbnb. You have to remember, like, everyone's story is different. They could have no mortgage, they could have no car payments, and maybe they achieved those because of the business, but also like you just have to remember that you need to do what's best for you. You need to do what's best for your financial situation, for your family, and not look at the Instagram highlights and think, Joe Schmo did it. Therefore, I need to do Airbnb. Therefore, I need to do VRBO. I need to do long-term rental. I need to do flips. I need to do wholesaling. I need to do realtor work. I need to do this, that, the other. Like, pick what you enjoy and also pick what you're good at and double down on it. Like right now, I would love to do more flips, but what's working is property management. Is property management what I grew up thinking I was going to do and dreamed of doing? No, definitely not. I did not think I was going to be talking to tenants and listening to their drama about who parked in whose spot and who, they took my mail and they knocked over my trash can. And, we've had units that have caught on fire. We've had countless plumbing issues. We've had people die in our units. You just can't predict it. You cannot predict it as a property manager. There's so many stories, and we're going to do a series called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Real Estate, because there's just, again, there's these Instagram highlights, and there's this idea that real estate is so glamorous, and it's not. Honestly, it's not. The best day of real estate is when you sell it. And that might be a hot take, but you could say you've got $500,000 in equity, and maybe you've got a line of credit on it that you can access that money, but otherwise it's just sitting there. You're not spending that $500,000. You might be making cash flow off it. And yes, that's great and dandy and all, but there's still headaches. The water heater still breaks. The roof leaks. Even if you've got a perfect A-class property, things are still going to happen. We had the Westfield house. We had an A-class property, put a tenant in there, and the cops were there every other week because of disturbances for noise or for the situation going on between her and her ex-husband. And, I filed for eviction. I filed to get them out of there, but it's not just overnight. It's not just going to happen because you want it to happen. There's legal things that are in the way. There's legal processes. There's things you have to go through. So the fact that people say that real estate is like you can just start it and do it and it's great and you're going to make money, you're going to make cash flow, you're going to retire. The whole sub 2 thing where, it's like I put zero money down and I instantly am making $200 a month. That's great and all, but you're not getting any appreciation off that. And it depends on how you set it up. I'm not going to say that. If you have it locked in a contract, you could get appreciation off of the property, but it's just this idea that it's easy. It's the idea that you can just, wake up and do it. And you listen to Bigger Pockets. It's like, hey, 25-year-old, 450 units, no money. Like, yes, it's clickbait. They're trying to get you to click on the podcast, but also like this kid is killing it. But then you also have to remember his situation is different. He, it could be not married, living at his parents' house, doesn't need, like the risk capacity is huge. He doesn't need, for as me, when we first started our career, we could take a lot more risks. But now with 3 kids, a mortgage, cars, like all these things, and it's not that, those things are great and all, but they're a necessity of life. We had to get a new vehicle because we had the kids. We wanted to have kids. So like we had to have a vehicle to be able to transport all them. So we had to sell one and get a different one. Like it's not like we're just trying to buy Bugattis every day. They're just regular vehicles, but our risk capacity is just different. I don't want to go out and buy 13 houses leveraged at 80% LTV and try and flip them and make money. Like I'd rather just save up the cash and buy a rental in cash and not have a mortgage. And, some people will say that's dumb. You can make more money buying 12 houses with that cash versus one. I'm like, well, if I own it all outright and I don't have a mortgage, if it's vacant for 3 months, it really doesn't matter to me. And the cash flow is now $2,000 a month versus $100. It's just different. Obviously you spent the money up front, but it just works differently in your brain. It's just, everything is different. You got to remember everyone's situation is different. Everyone's desires are different, why they're doing real estate. But if you want to make your side hustle your main hustle, you've got to love it and you've got to be committed. You've got to be ready to go for it and really put weight behind it and say, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to go for this. Because if you're just, what I see a lot is, shiny object syndrome. And I have it myself too, is like, hey, I could do this side hustle and make, $5,000 a month. I could do this one and make $5,000 a month. I could do this one and make $5,000 a month. It's like, that's all great and dandy. But what if you just did one thing for 5 years? How much money could you make in a month if you did one thing for 5 years? If you just took the time and did it, could you make $40,000 a month because you're doing one thing, or $10,000 or 15 or 100? I don't know what it is, but if you just stuck to one thing, got really good at that one thing, and then started another thing, what could you accomplish in that? It's just things to think about. Side hustles are great. They can make you money. They can also lose you money. They can suck your time away. But being over leveraged is definitely something that we've done in the past. And now we're trying to really focus on our main things being the main things, not get distracted by shiny object syndrome, and really stick to what we're good at. So I hope that was interesting. I hope that was beneficial to somebody out there. This is the Hoosier Homes Podcast. I'm Josh Keen. I'm a realtor here in Indiana, property manager. If you've got questions about real estate, if you've got questions about your property, if you're looking for a property manager, if you have rehab questions, anything like that, I'm happy to talk, happy to grab a coffee if you're local. I've got the Panera Sip subscription. It's not that great of coffee, but $16 for unlimited coffee a month is not too bad. Another thing that probably just unnecessary. I could just go buy a coffee or whatever. But this is the Hoosier Homes Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it.